Nigeria could be next if federal government doesn't act fast, advocates warn. A genocide expert and former Congressman Frank Wolf have warned that violence being committed against Christians in Nigeria and the US government failed response to it could lead to another genocide like the ones that occurred in Rwanda and Darfur. Wolf, a long-time Republican representative from Virginia, who is the namesake of the International Religious Freedom Act passed by Congress in 2016, joined Genocide Watch's Greg Stanton, Nigerian bishops and other religious freedom advocates on a Zoom call with reporters last week hosted by the advocacy group in defense of Christians. When the world and the US ignored genocide in Rwanda, hundreds of thousands of people died. History, I believe, is repeating itself, Wolf contended. Almost daily reports show increasing violence and deaths in Nigeria. An implosion of Nigeria will destabilize the surrounding countries and send millions of refugees into Europe and beyond. The conversation comes as estimates shows that thousands have been killed and millions displaced since 2015 due to attacks carried out by predominantly Muslim Fulani militias against predominantly Christian farming communities in the middle belt of Nigeria, as well as Islamic extremist attacks carried out by Boko People and Islamic State West African province in northeast Nigeria. Advocates have for years called on the international community to recognize the ongoing violence in Nigeria as a genocide. Genocide Watch, a non-profit formed in 1999 that seeks to raise awareness and influence public policy regarding acts of genocide, estimates that as many as 27,000 people have been killed by extremists or Fulani jihadists in the last decade. According to Genocide Watch, the violence carried out by Fulani militias and Islamic terrorists in Nigeria combined to make the deadliest genocide massacres committed by any terrorist since 2010. Boko People has committed genocide in Nigeria, has killed over 27,000 Nigerians, more than ISIS killed in Iraq and Syria combined. Wolf stressed during his opening remarks the Fulani militants are committing genocidal massacres against Nigerian Christians. While some international organizations have in the last year warned the International Criminal Court about the genocidal implication in Nigeria, Stanton, the Genocide Watch founder, told those on the call that Genocide Watch has labeled the pattern of Fulani jihad violence in Nigeria a genocide since 2012. He said that the Genocide Watch raised alarms about the genocidal implication of Boko People long before 2012. What is preventing the world from facing this huge problem? Stanton asked. The first problem that we face with the Fulani militias is the dominant current narrative, which is denial. Denial is a part of every genocide. It starts in the beginning and it usually goes way after. What we got here in Nigeria, the traditional narrative is a header-farmer conflict. That was exactly the narrative, by the way, in Rwanda before the genocidal there. Stanton explained that the US ambassador to Rwanda at the time thought of the violence committed against the Tutsis in the early 1990s as a civil war and conflict. Ultimately, hundreds of thousands of Tutsis were killed by ethnic Hutu extremists in just 3 months in 1994 as toxic rhetoric spread through the country incited Hutu radicals to attack their Tutsi neighbors. The result was the ambassador was unable to see that this was also a genocide, not facing the fact that actually most genocides occur during civil wars or international wars. Stanton said, so we would hold and so on in 1993. Finally, the denial ended up in April of 1994 with one of the worst genocides in history. Stanton warned that a similar dynamic is taking place in Nigeria. Our own embassy is still denying that this is genocide, that the Fulani militias are committing genocide, he said. So have human rights groups. Human Rights Watch, for instance, thinks of it that way. The International Crisis Group thinks of it that way. These are very distinguished organizations and I have great respect for them, but they are dominated by what I would call conflict prevention narrative. In essential terms, the US Embassy's policies on this violence have been what I call conflict resolution policies. They try to get the groups together and they try to have sort of kumbaya moments in which people talk to each other and everybody is hunky dory and they get along. Thank you for listening to this news. That is it, my viewers. What else? You can see that the Fulani herders issue is going all over the whole world. You can see that these people are world terrorists. They are not just herdsmen. Nigeria is the only country that I know that has refused to tag them as terrorists, and that is because of the president that we are having is also a Fulani. They are the one in power, so he doesn't want to tag his own people as terrorists. You get it? Whereas he is aware of all that has been happening. The people that are harmless, that are not even caught with any arm or ammunition, he tagged them as terrorists. But it's people who are the main terrorists, whom has been caught many times with all kinds of weapons, ammunitions, mention them. He has refused to tag them and label them terrorists. That is the biasness of this administration. So, my viewer, what are we saying? What we need in this country is sincerity and truth, straightforwardness. That is what we need. We need to put an end to this deceit. We need to put an end to this deceitful act of our Nigerian government. If our Nigerian government has refused to do something about it, we should be able to do something about it. So, my viewers, I don't know what your comment concerning this news may be, but please don't forget to leave them behind. Click on the subscription buttons as well as bell buttons to receive more updates.